Imran Khan was ousted from power. Pakistan's case could not be taken to the board, trading at its lowest rate against the US dollar. Last 20 years in Pakistan have been marked by a series of corrupt government officials. From the Prime Minister to the President, it seems like every politician is shaking down the general population for personal gain. The country is facing some of the worst economic crisis of its history. Foreign exchange reserves held by the State Bank of Pakistan stands at $9.7 billion as of May 2022. The country also has to repay $23 billion foreign debt in the next fiscal year. The current account deficit of Pakistan is expected to be more than $20 billion in 2022. This means that the country will need to borrow money from other countries for importing goods and services. The conditions were really not bad in the previous 3 months. Rather, Pakistan was somehow stable. But what happened then? On April 10, 2022, Pakistan's Prime Minister, Imran Khan, was ousted from power after losing a no-confidence vote in his leadership.
74 members have recorded their votes in favor of the resolution. Consequently, the resolution for vote of no confidence against Mr. Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, has been passed by a majority of the total membership of the National Assembly.
Tens of thousands of people took to the streets in Pakistan on Sunday night after Imran Khan called for peaceful protests, following his removal from office. As a result of no confidence motion, Mr. Shahbaz became the new Prime Minister. He is facing approximately $70 million of money laundering charges along with his son. His elder brother Nawaz Sharif, 3 times former Prime Minister, has been sentenced to 10 years imprisonment on corruption charges. But somehow he managed to escape the country and now resides in London. As Shahbaz has taken control, the Pakistani rupee is in free fall, trading at its lowest rate against the US dollar. Like Sri Lanka, Pakistan has been in urgent talks with the IMF, hoping to revive a $6 billion bailout package. That was put on hold after Prime Minister Imran Khan's government was removed in April. Pakistan's currency, the rupee, has fallen about 30% against the US dollar in the past year. The IMF has imposed its own preconditions for revision and extension of loan to Pakistan, which was put on hold as PM Imran Khan was removed. To gain the IMF support, Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has raised fuel prices, abolished fuel subsidies, and imposed a new 10% super tax on major industries to help repair the country's tattered finances. The International Monetary Fund has placed a condition that Pakistan's case could not be taken to the board until it arranged $4 billion from friendly countries to bridge the financing gap. The country needs to finalize the deal with the IMF, as other countries who have been lending money to Pakistan in the past are also reluctant. In May, the UAE refused to give Pakistan cash deposits due to the failure to return previous loans, and instead asked that Pakistani companies be opened for investment. These are the same countries that helped out Pakistan with its economic crisis back in 2018, when Prime Minister Imran Khan asked for help. If you were in the same situation, what would you do? You would have to come up with a plan to get out of this desperate situation. If you were Pakistan and didn't have any money left and no one was willing to give you any, what would you do? Well, you would probably start selling things off until you got enough money to get back on your feet again. But guess what? The government of Pakistan is doing the same thing right now. Yes. You listened it right. They are selling their assets. The federal cabinet approved a plan to sell stakes in oil and gas companies and government-owned power plants to the United Arab Emirates to bridge the financing gap as per IMF conditions. There are several factors behind the current economic backlash in the country. Pakistan has a vicious debt culture, which resembles the habit of borrowing fuel to run your car. Once you run out of fuel, you need to borrow again. The IMF in Pakistan is like a petrol station. It provides temporary relief, but costs more in the long term.
It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system. For if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning.
They are also borrowing money from China under China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and building many non-viable projects, like the Metro Bus and the Orange Line train project. The government spends a lot of money to keep running these projects. These projects are built on foreign loans, but the irony is that these are not even self-sufficient projects, rather rely on huge subsidies from the government. Asian Development Bank has granted loans of $37 billion to Pakistan since 1966. The Islamic Development Bank has also provided Pakistan with a total funding of $14.6 billion for 429 projects. With so much debt, it is difficult for a country to progress. It must change its habits of borrowing and spending and focus on building its own resources. The prices of basic food items like cooking oil and vegetables have increased many-fold, putting people's ability to feed their children at risk. Protests have been carried out by people against these increases.
I'm very worried about the continuous increase of prices, as all my livelihood depends on edible oil and gas, and the prices of both has increased and now out of reach.
Pakistan Airlines, Pakistan Railways, and the Pakistan Steel Mill all burden the economy with losses that could be used to benefit the country. Pakistan International Airlines faced losses of 50 billion rupees during the calendar year in 2021. Pakistan Steel Mills accumulated losses of 67 billion rupees in 6 months. Despite these conditions, the country's military budget is huge, spending nearly $10 billion each year. Adding fuel to fire is the instability of politics in Pakistan. Imran Khan, after his removal, claims that there was a US-led conspiracy to remove him because of his refusal to stand with Washington on issues against Russia and China. The US has said there is no truth in these allegations, and Mr. Khan has never provided any evidence. Using this narrative, Khan has carried out many protests throughout the country and said he is not ready to accept the imported government. Before Imran Khan, Pakistan was ruled by army, Bhuttos, and Sharifs. Pakistan's economy has been burdened by the dynastic politics and corruption that have taken place there. The former finance minister, Mr. Dar, has also escaped the country to avoid corruption charges. A permanent arrest warrant has been issued for him.
Properties do you and your family own?
It's all declared in my tax returns.
Well, give me the answer, because I don't know. How many properties do you and your family own?
I have my main residence in Pakistan, which has been taken over by by this regime. So I haven't got too many properties. But
how many properties do you and your family own?
My net worth is what has been reported.
How many properties do you and your family own?
One.
One
sole
property. You and your family own one property.
My sole residence.
So all of these stories in the Pakistani press about multiple properties owned by your family inside Pakistan, property interests overseas, including in Dubai, wherever, and we're sitting in London. We're sitting in London. You own nothing in London?
No.
Several other people, including ministers from both family parties, are also facing corruption charges. Despite the fact that Khan's government also failed to do well for Pakistan's economy, he blames these families for the current economic crisis. In his tweet, he said, "In just over 3 months, the Zardari and Sharif's mafia has brought the country to its knees, politically and economically, simply to save their illegally accumulated wealth amassed over 30 years of plundering Pakistan. My question is, how long will state institutions continue to allow this?" However, India, who is a rival of Pakistan, is performing much better economically than Pakistan. Still, corruption is not exceptional in India too. Bangladesh, that became independent from Pakistan in 1971, has left behind both Pakistan and India in economic growth. Right now, Pakistan need to make a lot of sacrifices, as their founder have said.
We must be prepared to face all difficulties and consequences. Make all the sacrifices that may be required of us to achieve the goal we have set in front of us.
As Pakistan is currently facing many problems, including hunger, poor educational and medical facilities, the politicians in Pakistan should put aside their differences and focus on the well-being of the general population. They have so far managed to stave off a potential debt crisis, avoiding the kind of economic meltdown seen in Sri Lanka. Still, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's coalition government is dealing with multiple political and economic crises. Officials in Pakistan have been accused of corruption for many years. The country is in desperate need of foreign loans in order to survive. Pakistan should focus on developing alternative clean sources of energy in order to reduce external dependency on oil and gas. They should change their ways if they hope to avoid becoming the next Sri Lanka. We can only hope for the best for this beautiful country full of very hospitable and kind-hearted people. They are not terrorist national, as the media has told us. They are people like you and me, who just want a better life for themselves and their families. We hope they stand as a nation and take their country to the glory.
Thanks for watching the video. In the next video, we might be covering your country. So be sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comment section.